But I think you're 100% right, Ashley, and I'd never considered it. The reason why David can still see spirits is because his connection to the magical realm comes from a body that was never transformed.
Yeah.
That's so simple and so genius. And good God, I hope Roland Jones is writing this shit down. If he's never considered it before, get on that and make it a point in the show. The Articulate Coven is the original unofficial fan podcast and community for Anne Rice's Interview with a Vampire, The Vampire Chronicles, The Lives of the Mayfair Witches, and the Immortal Universe from AMC and AMC+. Welcome to the Articulate Coven. We are your hosts. I'm Joel.
I'm Ashley.
And this is the Articulate Coven. The Articulate Coven is the unofficial fan podcast and community for Anne Rice's Immortal Universe, the Lives of the Mayfair Witches, the Vampire Chronicles, and all of the movies and TV shows that have been made from her works. We're going to talk about all of it eventually, folks.
Hell yeah. There's plenty
Ashley,
to talk
it's
about.
a book club night tonight.
It is a book club night. Very different vibe from our more recent episodes, I'd say, or more recent adventures.
So we've spent so long in the hinterland that is the Mayfair Witches TV series.
I was really happy to get back to a book, to be honest. And I was like, oh, and different voices to hear from. This is excellent.
And okay, let's talk about that off the top. Are you reading this or are you listening to it?
Right now, I am currently listening to it. So I listened to these first 6 chapters. I have a physical copy of it, and I also have it on Audible. So I tend to kind of switch back and forth depending on what's more convenient.
I do this all the time. I literally just reached around for my phone to be able to read who the narrator is for Merrick. It's
okay,
Graham,
here's something
somebody.
interesting. It's Graham somebody, but if you look at the picture, like, okay, so I've got it on Audible. If I look at the little picture that's the cover of the book, you know, the cover, it says read by Sir Derek Jacobi.
Interesting. So this is probably a re-record based on rights or something.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Graham Malcolm is the name of the guy who narrates the version that's out there right now.
I'm not mad at him.
No, I'm not mad at him at all. He makes a couple of really interesting choices, and we'll get to one specific one later. But I will just say generally, the audio quality of this recording is significantly lower than the Vampire Chronicles that we've just gone through.
Okay, I was wondering if that was because I was listening to different headphones.
I double checked twice to make sure that I hadn't downloaded because Audible gives you the options to like download a lower quality if you're on low bandwidth, if you want to save space or something. So I just assumed that I had the low quality copy, but like I deleted and re-downloaded. Nope, I've got all my settings set for high quality. This is just the highest quality that this one is in, and it's sad. And again, it's like these are nitpicky things. Does not affect the overall enjoyment, but here's one simple problem for me personally. I'm driving around listening to this thing on CarPlay on my radio, and I can't hear the damn. I've got it turned up to like 45, and if I switch to the radio, it blows my ears up. Yeah, super low. And boo on Amazon for not having better audio boosting features built into your app at this point. You're the biggest company in the world. Buy a lot or whatever from the Wally franchise.
Invest in yourself.
Yeah, man. Like I generally Overcast is the app that I use to listen to podcasts, and it has this amazing voice boost feature, which is built in, and it does some audio processing using your fancy little smartphone processor. And it doesn't matter the quality, honestly, of the audio that the producer is giving. It boosts it to a level that is
improving it.
Yes, it's really, really good. Anyway, I mean, I do know what I'm doing when I mix a podcast together, and I still like the boost feature in Overcast for my shows. So give me that in Audible, please. All right, that concludes our business bitching for this episode. There will probably be, I don't know, there might be some political bitching at some point.
Sure,
there will be additional bitching for sure, certain. Yeah. Merrick is the book that we're talking about today. So this book came out in 2000. And the very first thing that I want to tell you, Ashley, is that in 2000, I was very interested in lots of things. Not very many of them were reading, though. I will be very frank with you. I did not read many books.
Busy. We were busy. It was hard. We were memorizing scripts and learning music and sword fighting and
catting about town, let's be honest.
Making bad choices.
Making bad choices left and right. Learning who we are, ladies and gentlemen.
Growing.
Yeah, there was lots of that, not a lot of reading.
I wasn't reading very much during that time period either.
I do feel like I read this book pretty soon after release because it was very much, I was still an Anne Rice fan. It was very much part of my identity in college.
Right.
But it was not a book that resonated with me that much at the time, and I did not revisit it. I don't know that I've ever revisited it until this read. I feel like I had to have, but I don't know that for a fact.
I was really excited when it came out to read it. It did take me a little while. I think I must have read it that summer. The following summer, probably 2001. And I was excited because I really did love this idea of revisiting Claudia and getting some, like, I don't know, some connection to her, because I loved that character so much. And we left her behind proper. You know, we really hadn't had much discussion about her except for Jesse's telling of her experience, you know, her ghost story. And so I was really excited about, like, the plot line and what we were going to do and where we were going to go. But yeah, I haven't done a reread of this, I don't think, ever.
I love David Talbot as a character.
I do too.
He is one that I am desperate for them to bring into the TV series. And I genuinely hope that we get to live with his human Talamasca member form for a while before
Old Man David,
before the Tale of the Body Thief events happen. I mean, that may be the only entry that we get is right at the very beginning of that tale, and then we get just the adventure with him and Lestat. But he's such an interesting character, and he's got so many layers, and there are definitely some things to pick apart for him, just as we have with Marius in the past.
A lot to unpack.
Does not surprise me that the two of them get along well, Ashley.
No. It would not. It is not at all surprising. It's also not at all surprising that David immediately wants to, like, get in and get everybody's stories, you know, like,
yes,
that's not at all surprising to me either, that he's like, let me get nosy with these vampires and see what I could find out about their business, you know?
Right off the top, that's how he starts this book is, do any of you remember me, David Talbot? And then he kind of gives us this little preface that explains, you know, my story up to now, sort of thing, which is adorable because it's like, I learned it from you, Dad. Like, Lestat, his maker boyfriend, you know, literally does this in every book.
A quick rundown.
Do any of you remember the beautiful vampire Lestat? I'm 6 feet tall, which was very beautiful.
Very beautiful.
You know, and David does his version of that too, which is cute. There's some info here that I don't remember exactly reading anywhere else, but right at the top, he mentions that the Talamasca has survived for over 1,000 years at this point. We've talked in other book clubs and we've talked in other places in this series before that the Talamasca is very old, and even Talamasca members, even very high-ranking Talamasca members, don't really know where they came from.
Right.
There's the part in Blood and Gold where Marius shows up to have an interview with the Talamasca, and they're like, "Hey, do you know where we came from?
Do you know where we came from?" Yeah.
But it is interesting, and this is something that I did not remember from reading it the first time. David in this book has very much divorced himself from the Talamasca as an agency. He doesn't have any interaction with them, and he's not really concerned for, like, they've had some trouble recently and there's like some turmoil in the agency, and he's like, it's not my problem and they'll be fine.
Yeah. They've existed for 1,000 years. They'll be all right without me.
Yeah, he's like, oh, there's some priests that are angry at the Catholic Church. Yeah, I'm sure that'll foil their problem. You know, we literally had schisms. That's never
happened before. Yeah, that's
twice
never
at least.
Before.
Like, it's not an issue. Actually, we'll be fine.
Yeah.
It is interesting to think about them in that light, and especially when I think of the forthcoming TV series. There are some things early in this book, in this first 6 chapters or so, that I'm like, boy, what are they going to do with that? And has anybody read this? And are they going to use any of this?
Right.
There are some things specifically with the way that they've advertised that Talamasca series that make me very concerned based on what we've seen with Mayfair. And the fact that this same studio is doing all of that while they're also letting Rollin Jones write this love letter to Anne Rice and her characters is weird, man.
Yeah. But reading this did make me like, it did put me in a mindset of like, we can still get Aaron as a character, because Aaron, we see Aaron in the Mayfair Witch books, and we've not seen Aaron in the series at all, but we do. I do think that that Talamasca gives us an opportunity to, and that's like my one little hope, is that they'll incorporate some of these characters that they left behind, kind of, you know, in a way, and that maybe we'll get a version of them in at least in some way in Talamasca. I'm still keeping hope. I'm still keeping hope alive about Talamasca. But it does, I am a little concerned. I think some of the early advertising has kind of concerned a lot of us. But we'll see. We'll have to see. Fingers crossed.
Man, I've got to go and look up who this was. Okay. Ginou Clint 7845. I'm not sure. Is that Gino Clint? I don't know. I don't want to mispronounce it. They are currently binging the Mayfair season 2.
Bless.
And in between each episode, they are watching our videos and commenting on them.
Oh.
And so literally like, where is it? Okay. 15 hours ago, they had watched the first episode of season 2 and said, I came here as soon as I started watching season 2, and so far it's better than I expected. And I commented with the eyes emoji and then said, we also had that optimism at the top of season 2. And he goes, oh no, does it go to hell after episode 1 and 2? And then there is more commenting through, and now I'm trying to think how far they've got. They're up to episode 4 already.
Oh
yeah, okay. And they saw, well, I'm not going to spoil it in case you're listening to this book club episode and haven't watched Mayfair yet, but there is a thing that happens in episode 4 in particular that deals with the Talamasca that is very much not from the books. And the comment is, that thing cracked me up and exacerbated my loss of hope for the series simultaneously. And I was just like, I feel you. It's very simple, basic genre bullshit, not Anne at all.
Same.
Very, very worried. Like, the writers of the Mayfair series are not the writers of the Talamasca series. The writers of the Talamasca series could be literally a reset. That's like, my theory is that Mayfair has been canceled and we just don't know about it. And that if we see any of those characters again, it will be in a different project. This book, and that's one of the things that I want to kind of break down as we go, it offers some very specific chances to reset and sort of like, not retcon exactly, but rewrite, take what's good from the Mayfair series, yes, and put a layer on top of it that is more Anne and that would be easier to connect to the vampire series and so forth and so on. So yeah, you're right. I am also going to retain my hope, but boy, every ad I see, it feels like it dwindles a little bit.
This book does have a lot of connective tissue. If we get this far, I mean.
So David talks early here about the fact, you mentioned her already, Jessie from the Queen of the Damned book has a big section. This character of Jessie, who's a young member of the Talamasca, who ends up finding that her family line connects her to this greater story of the vampires. But she very specifically has an encounter where she reads some of Claudia's diaries, and we've mentioned this in reference to the TV show where the diaries come up as well. Right. She reads some of Claudia's diaries and experiences this interaction with the spirit of Claudia the vampire. That's what this whole book is about, honestly, is that idea and that story has not enraged, it's captivated Louis, and he can't get over it. He has this interaction with Merrick before the events of this book. He realizes exactly what a powerful witch she is, and he's like, well, let's see what we can do here. And David has fallen in love with and connected to Louis through his connection with Lestat. They're living together, the three of them, in New Orleans right now at this point in the books. And it's this weird little side story. I mean, and again, I want to skip to a note I have much later in the book, but it occurs to me when Louis first shows up a little bit later. Here's what I wrote. Let's talk for a moment about book fans being mad about Louis' race swap in the TV series. When the character of David Talbot in the book is a race swapped person due to his adventure in Tale of the Body Thief. Like, it had never occurred to me in that way, but I'm like,
yeah.
Anne
did that.
literally wrote this into her stories. White man becomes brown man. And in this case, it's like a very old, stodgy British. He's a museum curator, effectively, like an ancient Indiana Jones, if you will. And still, no, we put him in this like beautiful Southeast Asian body, who they don't even know the origins of, by the way. No, in this book, he talks about Aaron and I searched for the soul of this person.
He's gone, so I'm going to stay here. Like, bet.
Anyway, and again, I do think most of the book readers who genuinely cannot get past changes like that in Interview with a Vampire, I think they didn't get this far in the book series either. They read maybe the first 3. If they got to Queen of the Damned, I think that's even sort of like, because that's a thick ass book with a lot of other characters in it. I think they bailed on that one. I think they read the first 2 and forgot that Lestat had a boyfriend to start the second one. And they were like, yeah,
it's
okay.
Really, I will say it's really interesting to have this kind of, because we've been experiencing a little bit of a different version of Louis, who has a lot more rage in him than just sadness. And to return to the sad sack Louis has been, it was kind of weird. And I was like, it is weird, but I was like, oh, this is a side of Louis that I haven't seen or thought about in a while, that he's just this, like, because he still wants some sort of closure with Claudia. He still wants some sort of forgiveness from her. He still needs that sort of, that another moment of connection with her. He craves it, and that's something he's been hanging on to for a long time. And it is sad. And it is very Louis that he wants that, that he needs that.
So at this point we are 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This is the 9th book in the Vampire Chronicles, I think. And 9 books in, Louis has still refused to drink any strong blood. Mm-hmm. He was made by Lestat, obviously.
But and early Lestat,
this is pre. Well, he had, to be fair, Lestat had already had his adventure with Marius at that point, so he had been souped up as well.
There is some strong blood in there.
Yeah, he's not a basic vampire, but he's never had a re-up. And at this point in the books, the coven of the Articulate, which is mentioned here a couple of times, it has shrunk because of the events of Queen of the Damned and some of the other books. There's a small enough group of vampires, at least the ones that we all know about, right? There's these like rogues that show up from time to time. But the vampires that are in these stories have all interacted to such a degree that I think all of them have gotten a level up, because they're all like, well, we need to make sure when you go away from me, you're protected from these rogues that might be out there. So you ought to be super strong too. And here it's even mentioned that Mahari like basically begs him, like, please drink from me. Yeah. Okay. In the TV series, this is very different in that Louis gets he seems like he's hanging on Armand's neck all the time in the TV show. And by the time we see him in the 1940s in Paris, he's already got the fire gift. Right. All right. I do think, though, we can maintain this aspect of Louis because over these next 2, 3, 4 seasons, we are going to have so many actual ancients. Mahare, Makare, Akasha, Cayman, these first brood people, right? Seth is going to show up at some point. Jesus. Oh, dude, I get excited every time I think about the ancients showing up. But when these people show up, I do think we might see Louis refuse those relationships and that interaction. And I think the big defining factor, I had this image, I was like, oh, he's never going to fly. And it'll be like this, like one last thing, because already at the end of season 2, we see sort of like a, it's not like they're back together, but he and Lestat have forgiven each other by the end of season 2. It seems like, yes, reconciliation. Yeah. That's the word that I was looking for. Yes. Yeah. But I do think the fight from season 1 is going to be sort of like hanging over their heads all the time. And I thought to myself, what if after the events of this story, if we get there, and after the events of, well, this one is really where it happens, I guess. But
yeah,
there is a moment where he does get that upgrade, and the reconciliation is that he flies Lestat into the sky, not in anger and not in a fight, but they have that dance through the clouds together, and that can be our happily ever after as we ride off into the sunset. After 15 seasons and a movie, you please, motherfuckers, don't cut us short.
Give it to us. Do not cut us short on this.
If y'all can greenlight another Walking Dead show, you can give this one another try, okay? Mayfair, okay, I get it. Mayfair didn't hit. Interview hasn't blown up for you yet. I understand. Do not give up on us.
Patience.
Do not
Patience.
Give up on us. Patience. Patience, hands.
It'll be worth your investment.
All right. Let's talk some specifics here. I had forgotten so much about this book, in particular, Merrick and David's previous relationship. I had forgotten that he basically like saved her, brought her into the Talamasca. I had forgotten how that even happened. Like she shows up, this like vagabond child, like, take me to the Talamasca, please.
Yeah, and it mirrors Claudia and Louis and Lestat. Like that's the interesting thing there too, is that it kind of in a way mirrors that same relationship. Though I think that his relationship with Merrick might have been a little more inappropriate at times. I don't know.
No, we know very clearly. They talk about the jungles of Guatemala, and David even refers to it himself as a mortal sin. I don't think it was long lasting, and I get the sense that he probably didn't do anything at all untoward before that time. He had just had these thoughts, but we know already that David has pedophilic, what we would describe now as pedophilic thoughts. Or I guess technically it's not. There's that one comedian that does the bit about when you're attracted to tweens and teens, it's technically not pedophilia, but if you explain that to anybody, you then get in trouble very quickly.
Yeah, because that makes you sound like a fucking pedophile.
You know too much about the specifics of that, sir. Yeah. Anyway, he technically, I think, is that other thing. It's like the budding of womanhood or whatever he called.
Right.
God, the way he describes this girl, though. Yeah, it's not cool. It's not. Also, as he talks about at the top of the Armand book, he likes little boys as much as Armand does. It's like, you guys are all not okay. It's weird though that's like one little aspect of his personality, and he seems to have like surrounded it and calcified it with this like British willpower thing, right?
Yeah.
Like he does it even with his blood drinking, right? Like, I won't bite her, I won't give in, I'm better than all of that, even as he describes his lust. It's kind of nasty.
Yeah. It's got the ick.
It, like 12 and 13-year-old Joel, it was very much easier to talk myself into all of these characters. And 43-year-old Joel with,
because there is that when you're
two
young,
little girls on the other side of the house.
Yeah.
I'm like,
fuck that guy. It's because when you're the one that's 13 or 14 and there's an older person interested in you, it's cool and romantic, and it's, oh my God, I'm so mature and interesting. And it's not, you don't see it the right way. And that's of course the way that you see it when you're reading a book like this and you're 14. You're like, ooh, he's so smart, and she's like, she must be so mature that he wants to blah, blah. That's why you can't consent at that age, because you're dumb. Your brain doesn't work right.
Yeah. When you're a precocious 13-year-old that reads Lolita and talks about it as the world's greatest romance, you can understand that and talk yourself into it. When you're a 40 or 50-year-old, rewarded and awarded author who says to themselves, Lolita is the world's greatest romance, and then says it out loud in public still, my friend. Not my friend, actually, probably.
We don't like that.
No, it's just one of many things that they got going for them. That's a problem. All right. David is so disappointed in himself. Yeah. David is so disappointed in himself for having lost Jessie to the vampires, right?
Yeah.
Like, he sent her to investigate this Claudia thing, and then she got caught up in the story of Queen of the Damned, and now she's a member of this vampire tribe, and he's like, boy, I really fucked that one up. Yeah. And yet completely confident that he and Merrick and Louis are going to go on this adventure.
It's going to be fine.
And be just fine.
Yeah.
Just fine.
Yeah.
Let's tangle with vampire ghosts.
There's no way we're going to fuck this up. Not me and Louis. We got this shit on lock.
All right. I want to talk for a second about the Witch of Endor. So he describes Merrick when he's talking about when she first shows up. I think she references it first, but then he calls her that in their like journal entries or whatever when he's describing her adventures and her research and her activities for the Talamasca files. She's referred to as the Witch of Endor. So the Witch of Endor comes from the Bible. According to the Hebrew Bible, she was consulted by Saul, King Saul, to summon the spirit of the prophet of Samuel. So Saul had tried to get advice twice already to defeat the Philistines. The Philistines are like on the edge of his nation, and they're threatening this giant war. And he's like, I don't know what to do with them. So he had done two different like sacred means to contact God and get direct guidance, and neither one of them had worked. And so instead of waiting or wondering why he had been abandoned by God, I mean, that's the idea, is like he does the wrong thing and goes to this witch. So the Witch of Endor in the Bible, she's described as a woman, a possessor of an obe at Endor. So the idea is that she had a familiar spirit that she could call. The obe, though, or OV, depending upon where you look at it and what language you're trying to read this about in, that's a ritual pit for summoning the dead from the netherworld. So yes. So she literally had a pit in her home, or near her home anyway, where she could contact the netherworld. And he asked her to call up
your unholy pit in your home.
Yeah, right. He asked her to call up he asked her to call up Samuel, the prophet, and see what they need to do. But like Saul is ashamed to do this. He hides him. He disguises himself when he goes. Yeah. He crosses enemy lines to get to her too. Like it's a whole big thing. And then, yeah, it does not go well for anybody. The woman summons a spirit. When it appears, she works out who Saul is and screams, "Why have you deceived me? You are Saul." She's mad because she knows that God's going to be mad, like the Yahweh, Elohim or whatever, is going to be mad at her for dealing with his king. And she also knows it's not going to work out for Saul because he's been told specifically not to do it. Anyway, the point is that the Witch of Endor in the biblical narrative is like the wrong idea in every turn. It's wrong for Saul to have done it, and like it didn't go well, even though he did do this consulting. And in the end, Saul obviously loses the kingdom to David, who isn't his heir, et cetera, et cetera. So like, here's my point. This is literally David going, this girl is trouble.
Yeah.
But also we all love her and immediately like ingratiate her into the organization. Yeah. And years later, let me come back and interact with her again now, even though I've given the rest of the organization up because I'm a vampire. And David knew better is my point.
Yeah, 100%. I know she's trouble. And yet, if I'm the one doing it, it will be fine. I have control over myself, and it's because it's me. It's again, all of these old man vampires have such hubris. It's hilarious to me, and the fact that he lived that long as a human and is still like a kind of a baby vampire, although he's very powerful, he's still a baby vampire. He is audacious to think that he is in control of shit, that he is clearly not in control of shit.
So I've recently been going through some old home movies that I have made at different times, setting up a media server here. And one of the things that I got to watch recently is like this 20-minute video that I made of my trip to Europe. My first wife and I spent a month in Europe with some friends from college, and it was insane. And we were too young and so poor. And it was like, how did we have the gumption to just fly across the world and spend a month away from all of our like support systems? Who would have ever? Anyway, this morning I'm talking to my wife about it, and I said, our oldest son is 6 years from the age that I was when we flew to Europe, but he is 15 years from the audacity that I had to fly to Europe. Yeah.
That's probably
dude.
good.
No,
be
it's
grateful for that.
so very yes, absolutely the right thing to be. But like I was struck very much with the fact that like David in this book, especially, and at this time in his life, has that terrible stew. He's got all the knowledge of the old man,
Yeah.
but he has again regained that like feeling of immortality that you have when you're 15 and like, well, nothing will ever happen to me, of course. Yeah. It's not a good stew, Ashley.
No, it smells thick and nefarious.
All right. I like the character of Merrick a lot more this visit than I did the first time.
I think I do too. I didn't remember her being just an absolute lush, which I think is hilarious.
I mean, she is an alcoholic pretty clearly.
Yeah.
Like got a serious blackout problem.
Yeah, she's a drink till you drunk girl. Drink till you drunk. And I mean, I know the feeling, but let's maybe curb ourselves a bit.
David describes it. He says that she will work diligently at her projects when she's focused, and then she'll alert everybody that she's going to the moon, and she goes on a 2 or 3 day bender, perhaps. Yep. She prefers sweetness and flavor. She likes sugarcane rum, apricot brandy, and he mentions something else, and maybe our listeners can correct me or fill me in, or you can perhaps. He says something like gourmandise, but I Googled it and couldn't find it. He mentions 3 alcohols specifically: sugarcane rum, apricot brandy, and gourmandise is what it sounds like. But I don't. And
I don't know what that is.
Ad nauseum, as in like until she can't handle it.
Yeah. Well, and she doesn't drink all the time, but when she does, she's going to drink till it's gone.
Yes, a binge drinker, I believe, is the category there.
Drinker, yes.
She's one of her very opening connections, though, to the Talamasca, when she's first getting together with Aaron and with David and talking them through all of this. They mention the fact that do you want to go see great Nanan, who has been raising her grandmother has been raising her, and she says, I can't keep her forever. La Mystère won't wait. What a beautiful way to describe death. And in particular the feeling of being left behind by a loved one.
Yeah.
I don't know, and we've talked about this on the show too. I don't exactly know what I think the afterlife is anymore. But I do think that energy is not destroyed, and I do think there is something beyond this. And I think La Mystère is a beautiful way to describe that.
It is.
And the idea that we all have a date with it, right? And in fact, the person involved might be excited to finally get to the mystery of it all. And we don't get to hold them back from it.
And that she's so young and has that understanding of it, because this is when she's still quite young and they first encounter her. I love that. I do like that we get a little reference to Uncle Julian in this. They don't dilly-dally with the white Mayfairs uptown, but they do know them. And Uncle Julian used to come around occasionally, which just, is not a shocker.
This to me is the in for retconning this with the TV series, right? Making this a new in for the Mayfairs in some way, bringing the witches back into our Immortal universe in a way that is a little bit more Anne focused and a little bit easier of a crossover, with a more natural crossover, I should say, with the vampire series. Great Nanan. All right. Why not? We've met in the Mayfair series already Ancient Evelyn. And we know that Ancient Evelyn has a relationship with Julian. Even after he's dead, she's got a relationship with Julian in that show anyway. Why not have Julian and Ancient Evelyn be the grandparents here, and have her specifically have rescued Merrick from a pair of loser parents, just as she does in the book, and have her separate Merrick off from the rest of the Mayfair family, from the white Mayfairs, so to speak, because Ancient Evelyn saw this all coming. The downfall with Lasher and the machinations that Julian had, even with the Scottish Mayfairs, et cetera, et cetera. Like, that could all be something that Evelyn was aware of, had some hint of. Maybe
Right.
Julian had even told her. And so they knew they had this very powerful witch. Let's squirrel her away over here and keep her safe and
Claim
separated.
her, keep her as our own.
Yeah. And again, like, I doubt you bring in, I mean, it wouldn't make much sense to do that if you're not going to tie it in somehow to the TV show. And Ancient Evelyn is the character that you could do that with.
I mean, like, yeah, that's a real easy.
Yeah, that's a pretty good fit. All right. Merrick tells David, once they're finally back together and he's a vampire now, she says, "You're more David than you ever were. The face is different, right? Your smile is different, but you're more David than you ever were." And I love that idea, honestly. It comes up again later. Aaron talks about how slowly, the longer that David's in this body, it begins to have David's mannerisms instead of its own, right? It crosses its legs differently, right? Because it's David now. I love that idea, honestly.
I do too. I do too. You become more, I mean, the body becomes yours. Of course, of course you're physically inhabiting it, that makes perfect sense to me, that as time goes by and he gets more comfortable in it, he owns that body. It's his now. And also that joy of being like, not only are you immortal, but you're youthful again. And you have that going for you. And that's energizing in a way that I'm sure, I mean, he's never tired now. So of course he can like research and read all into the night and never ever have to stop except to, go to bed in the daytime. And it just gives him these opportunities to be David, on such a level that he's never really had before.
He's reading the files that Aaron had written about him at one point a little bit later in the book. And he comes across the part where Aaron is excited because this new body doesn't have eyesight issues. And David had really had bad eyesight in the last years of his life. And David's like, "Oh yeah, I forgot humans have to worry about eyesight. Right. That's so crazy. That's so crazy." He's already like gone beyond that. I thought that was a humorous little moment. All right, let's talk about Aaron Lightner for a minute here. Aaron is such a wonderful character in these books. And I'd forgotten Aaron. How heavy he figures into this one in particular.
I did too. I didn't remember this whole section about reading his files that he'd written about David, and it's so like poignant and sweet and heartbreaking in a way that they never got to reconnect, and I hate it. I hate that.
The narrator for this book in Audible speaks with a Southern accent when he's reading Aaron's voice from the files. And I don't know why anyone told him to do that. So Aaron Lightner, if you haven't read any of the Mayfair books, he's a British member of the Talamasca, and he does move to America like as a pretty young man, like in his 30s. He moves to southern Louisiana, honestly, to study the Mayfairs, and is connected with them, from like the 40s all the way up into the modern day. But the book says again and again and again that he speaks with the affectation of like a British stage actor, that he's got a very British voice. I don't know why they made him Southern. I guess to make him stand out from David, maybe.
Yeah,
but like,
maybe that is an odd choice. I don't even think
I really. Well, he married a Southerner, so he must have been
fine. He lived in New Orleans. He must sound like this.
Here's something though that I had forgotten. It's been so long since we've covered the witching hour and whatnot. Aaron goes to the Amsterdam mother house at the age of 15 in 1921. He doesn't actually become a member until 1943 when he's grown. But he also is like Merrick and like Cyprian from the Mayfair TV show, in that they were basically saved by the Talamasca at a very young age. Here's something else that I'd kind of forgotten about Aaron. This dude's got a lot of powers. He's basically Professor X. He's a very powerful telepath, but he's also got some telekinesis. He can move things with his mind. I'd totally forgotten that too. I was like, oh, God, we got to go read those witch books again, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to have to.
Series don't do it.
No, it doesn't do it justice. And it does, it like, in my brain, I'm like, no, Aaron is an important character. Aaron matters. Aaron, like, to not have Aaron Lightner is such a huge, huge mistake. And then And then to pop into this book, it's just a big reminder to me that, like, no, you're right. That character is important. That character does matter. That character's fucking interesting as hell and fun and caring and has depth. Like, ugh. I'll get mad about Mayfair all over again.
It's easy to do, Ashley, and like, not everything has to be the same, but genuinely cutting out a character, and in that case, they cut out two, Aaron Lightner and Michael Curry, both of
Right.
which are amazing.
High value characters, high value.
Yes, bring us back. Give us a Mayfair Witch Files series, you know, as a period piece.
Yeah,
and have Aaron interacting with Julian. That's the way to do it, in my opinion. That's the number one way to do it. But you could even do it here if you want to tell an earlier story with Merrick, right? You could tell her joining the Talamasca and have Aaron and David both be a big part of that.
Absolutely.
And then move into the modern story from the book. Anyway, there are options here. Please take advantage of them. Some of them, writers, please bring us these characters. We deserve Aaron especially.
Yeah.
David says, my mind drifted back to him. Aaron, my colleague, my companion. David says in this book that he's only ever really loved three people: Aaron Lightner, Lestat de Lioncourt, and ever so briefly, Merrick Mayfair. First of all, good choices all. There were three great people.
All around.
I'm very fond of.
Very good quality taste you have there.
I do think it's funny though, and the Aaron relationship is, I don't think it's ever expressly said that it was a romantic one or a physical one, but you do get the hint, and Aaron even says it in his files. If I had held his affection a little tighter, then maybe, if I hadn't have been so focused on the witches, then maybe he wouldn't have gotten absorbed by the vampires.
Right.
Aaron sort of blames himself for the loss of David in the end. And honestly,
but the same thing happens to David. I mean, the same thing happens to Aaron. Aaron gets absorbed into the Mayfair witches. He marries one of them. Like, that's like, I mean, like, that's how he got sucked into that just as quick and clearly as David got sucked into the vampires. I mean, my God.
100% he did. Absolutely he did. Yeah, Aaron Lightner, if you have not read those witch books, you're really, really missing some great stuff, especially the first one. You get so much with him in that first book. He shows up, correct me if I'm wrong, but Aaron is in Queen of the Damned in a few scenes too, isn't he? Yeah, that's what I thought. He and David are both around for that as well. So again, there are ways to bring him into this universe on film, or on TV, I should say, even though we've missed him so far.
We've skipped ahead, series. But we can still always pick him up.
Yes. All right. David says, I avoided her touch because I wanted it so much. He just leers over this girl earlier. Okay. When she first shows up at the Talamasca, and she's literally a child at this point.
Right.
He says, I would have kissed her, except she was so ripe with her bare feet on the floor. Ugh, David. Like, again and again and again. Anne really enjoys describing these sorts of affectations from men. I don't know why she did, actually, but it comes up a lot. We should go
through some interviews and see if we can find a...
I do wonder. Morsel. I mean, and I don't remember that it ever really got brought up. And I do know that this sort of thing was not discussed or critiqued or thought about in the same way when you and I were young.
No.
That it is now in literature and art, right? Like, it's not, nobody thought it was a bad thing to read Lolita, for instance, or watch Lolita.
Right.
That was just like, they had made like 3 different movie versions already by the time you and I were children, right?
For fucking real.
So like, anyway, I don't know.
It is a well-known literary trope. Like, it is. I mean, whether we like it or not.
And historically,
it's a real fucking problem too. Like, let's be real.
Yes.
It's a real fucking thing and a real fucking problem that happens. But it is it is something that was definitely a literary trope for a long while. I haven't really read anything recently that has that same kind of vibe, but
no, I think it has very much been excised. This sort of this sort of version of it anyway,
Yeah.
right? When it's
Yeah.
addressed, it is addressed as an issue or a problem or a mortal sin, as David describes it. And it's
Yeah.
not something that we hang on our protagonists very often at all, I would say.
No, indeed. It's not like,
like Anne's handing it out left and right. She's like, "Oh, you love Marius? How about this?
You're a perv. You're a perv. You're a perv. Everyone's a perv." Thanks, Anne.
So David has a very powerful mind gift. Louis doesn't have any almost at all. Like he and again, that's a big change from the books, but it is an interesting dynamic here in this book. Or it's a big change from the books to the TV show, I should
series,
say.
Yeah.
Okay. So he and Merrick are having their interactions, and he's laying out what he wants Merrick to do, although she already knew before he ever showed up. And then she commences to getting shit-faced drunk, just rage, so much so that he has to carry her back to a hotel. She's like, "Just take me home." And he's like, "To that neighborhood? Like this? No, I've got to go sleep today during the day, and you will be left. No, I'm taking you to this fancy hotel." She full on puts it on, asks him, this new body work in all the right areas there, David?
You got it.
What that dick do?
What that dick do, David? What that new dick do?
He refuses, and he tells her that what happened in the jungles of Guatemala was a mortal sin. It'll never happen again.
Mortal sin.
So David is a dirty old man in a new body now, but he is also a man of fairly amazing willpower. I mean, genuinely. Okay, let's just be very honest here. Someone else we love very much. Lestat would have screwed the shit out of this girl. Then he would have drained her. Then he would have probably turned her and been like, "Louis, I've made the witch a vampire. What should I do? Oh no.
Oh no. She can tell our future now. Lord.
Oh, okay. That's a good point that we haven't talked about here. Let's talk about the fact that David is sort of unique among the vampires. Vampires, as a general rule in Anne's world, are disconnected from the spirit world. Even those who had, telepathic or medium powers in real life or in their mortal life, they lose it once they become vampires. That's not happened for David.
And I wonder if it's because his real body, he never died. He didn't die in his body, is what I wonder if it has to do with. Like,
I've never considered. I wonder if Anne did that on purpose.
So
but yes, that would make sense. So, like, literally and again, like, if you're listening to the book club for Merrick, I'm going to assume that you've read Queen of the Damned. Amiee, the animating spirit of vampirism, is this giant thing who condensed himself down and joined into the bodies of Akasha and Inkle, and then spread out from there into all the other vampires. And Anne talks about it often as a tendril, a web of connection. Mm-hmm. This web of connection, though, isn't connected to David's mortal body. I've never thought about that before. You're right. David's mortal body died. David's new body was transformed. And therefore, if the spiritual powers, if the magic, how does Louis describe it? Magical components. Louis and David are talking about how this all works and why Merrick can do the things that she can do and why some other people have these powers and how it's different than vampirism and et cetera, et cetera. And they talk about these magical components of humanity. And Louis makes the point, those magical components are still in us, our vampiric forms, right? And he says, yes, but they're sort of overridden and overpowered by this vampiric entity. But I think you're 100% right, Ashley, and I'd never considered it. The reason why David can still see spirits is because his connection to the magical realm comes from a body that was never transformed.
Yeah.
That's so simple and so genius. And good God, I hope Roland Jones is writing this shit down. If he's never considered it before, get on that and make it a point in the show. It's such a cool point, too. And it's one of those things that, again, is like, why do we care about these stories about vampirism? And it's about the other, and it's about the way we all feel othered in some ways. It's about how we other people and all of those interactions. But it is also a great way to externalize and sort of like just roll it around in your mind in a disconnected and sort of like low stakes way all of these giant philosophical and theological ideas. Hell yeah, man. I cannot believe you just... I'm genuinely... I'm so shocked we need to end the episode now. Like, I'm really like, let's just all take a week and consider that
and
while we come
recollect
back.
ourselves, and then we can come back and...
Wow. Okay. Speaking of the spiritual, though, I want to go into this now. So this book, and it had not occurred to me until we're rereading it today, this is probably the first time I'd really read anything about voodoo is in this book. And I just was taking it all as absolutely, gospel. This is the way that it must be, because Anne does such a great job generally of researching things. Yeah. So now the connection that David describes between like a St. Peter statue, for instance, and Papa Legba, I was like, what? Our religious symbolism could be layers for other religious symbolism. Again, even at like, whatever, I'm 19 at this point. That was a big open-minded moment for me. That was about the same time that I had a professor tell me, let's say that Mexico invades the United States and takes over the country in a giant revolution. The first thing they would do would be to replace the 4th of July, not by outlawing it, but by making it Mexican Heroes Day. And that was a story about Christmas and Easter, Ashley.
Mm-hmm. Yep, 100%.
I was like, what? I'm that meme with the mind exploding. Yeah. I love David's like addressing of this and talking about like how he won't meet the eyes of the statue, even though he makes the prayers and says the little rituals and things. Here's one though that I couldn't find up, and I couldn't figure out, and I'm hoping our listeners or maybe you can help me. Eshu is how David first refers to the Papa Legba. He says Papa Legba, Saint Peter, is also Eshu. But then later he comes back and he specifically says that his deity is Oshala. David prays and says that he's always served Oshala, the god of creation. David was a true worshiper of his for years. He was possessed by Oshala at different times. He gave himself over to the worship as much as he could give himself over to anything, he says. Okay. I could not find Oshala with any spelling. The god of creation in the region of Brazil, so for the Tupi and the Guarani languages, that word is Tupan or Tupav or even Tionodeda, but any of those words are not anywhere near what he's saying here. So I wonder if Anne maybe made this up not to offend anybody. I don't know.
Maybe so. I need to get I need to get my hard copy out of this so I can look at some of the like spellings and things like that. Because
that would be a great idea.
I have 100% just been listening, but that is a really good point to make about like because I have no idea some of what's being said.
I do really like the idea though that David has this like overarching unifying theory that he's held to through his mortal life, and then even now as a vampire, he's like, I serve the god of creation.
That's not
as opposed to a god of destruction, right? Like he's a builder.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or wants to be anyway. Okay, let's go right back down to earth and down into the ditches, Ashley. David says, I became painfully conscious of her breasts. He comes and finds her, and she's literally like passed out. She's been drinking more, even after he dropped her off at the hotel. He comes the next night, and she's like basically unconscious.
He left her specifically with a very well-stocked mini bar. Hello.
Yeah, like you should have known what was up with that.
You knew.
But he's cradling her and he's like putting her back to bed. And again, he's bragging about his willpower that he didn't grope this unconscious girl. And I'm
She's
like,
a
okay,
grown woman
David,
now. You can do it now. Like,
we'll
asshole.
stop patting you on the back.
God, like it wouldn't be.
That's a good point, I suppose. Yeah, she is older at this point.
She's in her 30s, right? Like, fuck.
Man, speaking
Maybe you should have used that willpower back when she was like 16, bro.
Who do we want to play Merrick when we get to this in the series? By the way, I've seen some good guesses already on TV, but there are so many. And I'm gonna mispronounce her name, but she was the second lead in the Loki series.
Oh yes.
what is her name? I say second lead. I guess that was maybe an oversimplification, but she's one of the major players.
God, I fucking love that show. Loki was so good, y'all.
Gugu Mbatha Rao, I think is how you pronounce her name. She played Ravonna in Loki.
Yeah, she was so fantastic.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Again, my guess is that there is some wonderful French actress who could do this a great justice that we just don't know. Yeah, I don't know, man. But I trust, as long as Rollin is involved when we get to this adaptation and not Esta, then I trust them.
Yes, we just gotta keep our fingers crossed we get this far. I hope that we can get. I hope we get this far.
So Merrick had already, David goes through Merrick's things since he avoids groping her in her unconscious state. He does go through her stuff, though.
Yeah, I guess it would have been good if he groped her unconsciously. That's sensual. I just mean age appropriateness. This is a much better situation than we were in before.
She's got a handkerchief with his blood on it, and he maybe this isn't why she has it, but he immediately goes to she was preparing for a spell. Yeah. And it turns out she's got the Papa Legba statue. She's got a cigar for Papa Legba as an offering. She's got all these, she's got the Florida water set up, et cetera, really all these things.
I think my first exposure to like voodoo of any type was probably Major League.
Oh, that's a good call. It's not Legba that he prays to, is it? Who does he pray to in that movie?
I don't remember, but holy shit. I mean, that's probably why I didn't ask any questions.
Isn't there some voodoo in, I think it doesn't happen in the first movie. I think there's voodoo in Weekend at Bernie's too.
Oh,
I think there's a voodoo plot line.
There is. That is the whole plot line in Weekend at Bernie's too. Holy shit.
Jobu. Yeah. He prays to Jobu.
That's right. Jobu.
In Major League.
God, I love
Jobu, if you don't help me now, to hell with you. That's no, wait, I think I'm crossing over with Crom. That's what Conan says to Crom. If you don't hear me now, Crom, to hell with you. All right. It's interesting to me exactly how much in this book we do get like an epilogue and postscript to the tale of the body thief.
Mm-hmm.
Like
we do.
We hear all of these things about them testing David's new body,
right,
and what has happened here, and then them deciding like what to do with this knowledge. And Aaron's basically like, I'm burying it because nobody needs, this is dangerous. People don't need to know that you can do this.
Yeah.
Because all of my friends will start doing it.
Yeah. Like, yeah. You can get yourself in a hot new body and live forever, basically.
Aaron really doesn't trust the Talamasca, too. When you read these files, like David says, oh, they'll be fine. I think they've got it sorted out already. Aaron is like, no, I don't even know who the elders are.
Yeah.
Okay. This, again, is one of those moments where I am very questioning of the Talamasca. They have cast elders already for the Talamasca series. And I'm like, I don't feel like those should have been announced. I mean, if we're going to meet them, fine, but like not probably in episode 1 or 2, and you probably shouldn't have announced them in the cast. Those should be surprises, is my point.
Yeah, or maybe it's a version of that isn't this yet, you know?
Maybe.
I don't know.
I'm worried. Oh man, okay. I there was a line here when David and Louis first get together in the book. Where David's just describing how beautiful Louis is and how much he's fallen in love with him, and how like even from moment one they both understood they both totally love and adore Lestat, and that's basically what they bonded over to start with. But David says, I loved his lean, graceful movements. And it just occurred to me again, like, yes, there are different shades of Louis' character that the TV series has focused on. More rage and a little less of the ennui that book Louis has. But that line, loved his lean, graceful movements, you can't tell me that does not perfectly describe Jacob.
No, it does perfectly. It does perfectly.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of what he says that describes that version of Louis still perfectly. I just love that, we get to see different facets of the character, and the Louis that we know in the series right now isn't at this point yet. He's not here yet. He's not to the point that he wants, so we don't know how he's going to feel to us when we get to this point in the series.
So I will say, though, that the TV show has, I think, very genuinely planted the ideas of a Claudia haunting Louis storyline.
Yeah.
So first of all, Claudia's got this big monologue in season 2 where she specifically references, if there is an afterlife, I'm gonna come back and haunt you, motherfuckers.
Fucking love it. Kill
and then
you.
Also, Louis makes a big decision in our flashback episode in season 2 from 1973. And he specifically references hearing Claudia tell him to do so. And then the fact that her dress is hanging in the penthouse at the end of season 2. Claudia is very much a figure in this series moving forward. And I think genuinely they're planting little seeds that they plan on coming back and reaping with this storyline eventually. So I don't know that we'll do everything between here and there, but I really do think we're going to meet Merrick, and I really do think we're going to get this particular adventure.
Yeah,
if Rollin gets to stay around.
Yeah. I hope so, because I do love this story. I mean, and you're right, it is just kind of a little side quest. This isn't, I mean, there's some crazy shit that happens in this, but overall, it's, it's not. It's just, it is like a little side adventure, so it kind of has a different vibe to it.
Louis says, I want desperately for Merrick Mayfair to raise Claudia's spirit, and I'm prepared for whatever might come. But then I love that David almost immediately goes, you have no idea what might come. Like, none of us do. We don't know. This is which again, he's still so confident to go through with this, and he never really, he doesn't put the brakes on even as he's telling people.
Even though he's yeah, we don't know what a spirit of a vampire is going to look like coming back.
What if hell is real and she's stuck there, and now we all get to dread the fact that someday we'll go there too?
Yeah.
What if she's been lost all this time, and now we're weighed with the guilt that we might not be able to get her to transfer on to a higher level of existence or whatever, or put her spirit at peace, et cetera, et cetera. What if
no vampire ever find peace?
Yeah. Or what if she's a fucking vengeful spirit and decides to do us all in from the beyond, all those things might happen. And he knows that they could happen. Okay. Here is an example of what I wanted from the Mayfair Witches and what we did not get so far in the show and what we could still get elsewhere. So I'm holding hope. Louis is describing to David the first time that he saw Merrick, how he knew of her existence at all. They ran into each other in New Orleans. He had convinced himself that she was wandering around wanting to die. She was walking by herself.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Heard his steps and didn't even react to it, et cetera, right? But just as he's getting close to her, one imagines to bite her, she turns and stares him in the eye and says, touch me and I'll shatter you. And he fucks off almost immediately. But I do wonder, first of all, I think both she and Louis truly believed that she had the power to do it. She could have torn him piece from piece right there on the spot if she wanted to. Whether that be through, she threatens, I'm going to call up the dead to attack you. I think she could probably do that too, honestly. We don't exactly see those powers elsewhere in the books. But we also get the impression that Merrick is even considered powerful among people who have psychic powers or medium powers or whatever. Yes. She's a bad bitch, even in this world of bad bitches.
Well, and turning around and realizing she was not looking for death. In fact, she is, she's doing just fine.
Okay, right towards the end of the section that we're going to talk about tonight, two things happen in this book that I think are wonderful, and they happen in many of her books. David says, let me say here a few words about New Orleans. And then
we wax poetic.
Yeah. Well, mostly in his case, he's talking about vampires in New Orleans. And again, here's something that I'd never really considered before, but he's actually 3 vampires hunting New Orleans is a lot because it's not a very big city. It's geographically small. And even at its height, I think it had 350 K people. This is a very small city. Okay.
And you have to be really getting rid of bodies isn't easy there either. Let's be real.
As we discussed previously, they float in the water, y'all. They float in the ground too. They come right back out.
Yeah.
So I love that section though, but yes, he does opine. And again, this is just an example of Anne is in love with New Orleans herself. Anne Rice is. And so all of her characters are in love with New Orleans, and she displays it again and again and again. She talks similarly about San Francisco as well. She talks a little bit that way about Paris, but New Orleans is her greatest love as far as geographically speaking. And you hear it through all of her characters when they get a chance to speak.
Yeah.
But right after that, a few more words here about Lestat.
Just a couple of points about my hot boyfriend.
Let me tell you about my boyfriend. No, but I do love though, and we get some interesting tidbits here. And you put yourself in the place where these books came out. Anne had stepped away from the character of Lestat in many ways. At the end of Memnoch the Devil,
Memnoch,
he's basically in like a religious coma, and stays in it until the events of the Vampire Armand. What we find here, though, is he didn't like come out and stay out. He sort of goes back into it and has these long periods where he is inactive. And even when he is active, he doesn't hunt anymore. He doesn't feed. He's not connected to the mortal world. He's still having this religious, philosophical, theological war in his head, at least.
Well, and Anne herself felt disconnected from Lestat during this time period too. She didn't feel like she wasn't speaking to her. She wasn't hearing his voice. That's one of the reasons why we're getting these books with different narrators. That's one of the reasons why. And
it's very strange.
But she doesn't want us to forget about him, and also understands that her readers want to know what the fuck's going on with him. If we're not going to hear him, if he's not telling us the story, we fucking need to know what's going on with him. Like, you better talk about Lestat in every book, or we're going to be a little fucking annoyed.
David even says that there are times when Lestat is not in his body, and he says he might be just projecting himself. We know that he can do this. We learned it in Tale of the Body Thief. We learned how to do that. He could be astral projecting. But also, Lestat doesn't like that power, and he doesn't like to do it. It makes him feel weird and less human. And I know that. So I don't think that's what's happening here. I don't know where he is, and I don't know where my friend goes when he's not in his body. And that's strange, isn't it? And he just leaves it hanging out. He's like, and then that's all I have to say about Lestat. Probably.
For now.
Put a pin in that.
Yeah.
So, okay, the end of this section, as we wrap up chapter 6, is one of the strangest in all of the books, I feel like. David and Louis go hunting together, but they find themselves like a trap house, basically, where a grandmother is desperately trying to raise her grandchildren, and the two daughters, one assumes, of that older woman are literally just like passed out on various narcotics in the living room. Parts of the house are spotless because grandma takes care of them. Parts of the house have been abandoned to these two drug users. And then David and Louis just come in here and kill these two women while the grandma is in the other room praying for it to happen, it seems like. It's a weird scene, Ashley.
That's, taking care of business for someone, I guess. Is that the evildoer? Is an addict an evildoer, or are they just in a bad situation?
Okay, this is very pertinent, though, because we've talked about in the past Anne's interesting liberal politics. She was always a liberal, but she was like this weird hawkish liberal at times, and would have very interesting libertarian, almost financial ideas from time to time. And I think this is one of those examples. She's like, yeah, fuck the drug users. And I'm like, hey, Anne, you grew up in San Francisco.
Jesus, Anne.
Right? Like, you and Stan were doing it in Haight-Ashbury, basically. Like, maybe chill the fuck out on the drug user attack there. Anyway, it's a weird one. It's a weird finish to that section. And it's weird how she describes it. Like, it's almost like this religious experience that David and Louis are coming in to play the figure of death. Immediately, though, made me think of the scene from Meet Joe Black where Brad Pitt's Grim Reaper literally speaks in a Haitian patois to the old woman, right? To give her peace. I was like, this is not that. Like, let's don't do that. I did want to go look, like, what year did Meet Joe Black come out? Did Anne have that same thought too? Now she sees Brad Pitt doing it?
Oh my God.
I don't know. Meet Joe Black came out in 98, so she could have been thinking about that when Grandma prays for death.
Could have been a little inspiration.
Let me suggest here, by the way, if you've never seen it, there is I didn't know this when I watched it in 98, but Meet Joe Black is a remake of a movie called Death Takes a Holiday. It's
Oh
an
yeah,
old movie, black and white movie. It's really good as well. Like Meet Joe
yeah.
Black is good. It's easy to poke fun at because for some reason it has Rocky Horror Show
I mean,
pauses in it. I don't know why they do that. The delivery is slow. That's a 3-hour movie that could have been an hour and a half if they just
yeah,
would have tightened up
just
the
a
dialogue.
little bit of editing, a little bit of good editing, a little less
But
ego, a little more editing.
a really interesting story to tell. And again, the original of that is, I think, really good too. I don't know whether Anne was inspired by that scene, but it did immediately remind me of that, because Grandma is literally just sitting over there
I
praying for
mean,
death for these two. I'm presumably her daughters in the room there. Like, I don't, again, weird situation. Y'all, if the rest of this book is this weird, Ashley and I are going to go on an adventure with y'all over the next few weeks.
yeah, we're doing it regardless. Here we go. I haven't read this book in so long. I know all the big shit that happens. I'm just very interested to see how we, get there.
Yeah, how we get there. All right, let's talk about the schedule real quick. So next
Okay,
week we're going to do Dracula's Daughter from 1936. Really
excellent.
cool. Talking about an older movie. Really cool
I've
older
never
movie.
seen that one. I'm really excited.
It's a direct sequel to the Dracula with not Bram Stoker, with the Bela Lugosi
Bela
Dracula.
Lugosi's.
So
Okay.
like, I mean, it literally, I think there's at least a couple of characters that carry over from that movie, and it's like the end of Dracula starts Dracula's Daughter. It's
Hell yeah.
crazy.
I love
Yeah.
that.
It was also a favorite of Anne's. Then the week after that, we'll come back with chapters 7 through 12 for Merrick. Then we're going to do Movie Night for The Witch from 2015, Robert Eggers' movie. Then we're going to talk about chapters 13 through 19 for Merrick. Then we'll come back and do Poor Things from 2023, the Emma Stone. See, I remembered it at that time.
You did.
Sort of a Frankenstein type movie.
So fun.
Then we're going to do the final book club part for Merrick, chapter 20 through 25. And then and I think the date is actually 5/11. I have it written down here as 5/4, but I think it's gotten pushed back. May 11th, we should do Movie Night Nosferatu, and we're going to do the 1922 film and the 2024 film.
Nosferatu times two.
Not Nosferatu. Exactly.
Nosferatu.
Indeed. Yeah, so that's what's coming up next for us. Very much enjoy everybody coming along with us for this little ride. I mean, thank you, I guess, for suggesting and demanding that we read Merrick next.
I wouldn't have read it until we were rereading it, so I'm happy to be rereading it.
Indeed. It was not on my, like, I was going straight into, I was trying to fight whether we were going to do The Witching Hour or Lasher, and I wanted to do them both, honestly. I thought we'd probably go Lasher because so much of season 2 seems like it was stealing a bunch of plot lines from that, but then not doing them.
Introducing them and yet leaving them behind.
But genuinely, y'all, I'm really enjoying this. It is a very different book to get into, and it's a reminder that Anne is multitudes, right? Like, she contains legions. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And it is fun. I do love diving into one of these books with a different narrator. I always think that that's really fun, and it's just, they feel so different than Lestat's books. So I like it. I'm into it.
Yes. And I had not really thought about the fact that, as you put it, that she had stepped away from, or the voice of Lestat had stepped away from her at this point too. So like, it genuinely is Anne exploring some really different things in her own life that are coming through her art. And again, like, we love it all, y'all, even the really weird stuff. And it is interesting when you love an artist as much as we do, Anne Rice, to try to experience the depth and breadth of everything that she has to offer, because I think it does color the works that are more up our alley, right? Like, this one isn't one that we've revisited a dozen times, but when we now go back to those Mayfair books, there will be things that we see and have experienced in the rereading of this that will color our experience of those books as well. So
absolutely,
thanks everybody for being on this journey with us. Thanks especially to all of our patrons for making it happen.
Yes,
I'll just point out here, if you're not a member yet, articulatecoven.com/join. You can join for free, which is a great thing to do. You get announcements that we have to make from time to time, and the algorithms don't get in the way.
Right.
In particular, here's one for you. I have put up a post as this goes live. There is a post that went live today for our patrons, paid or not, that is asking if you intend to join us in New Orleans for Anne's Celebration of Life. We need numbers. We need to know how many of you are going to genuinely try to make it out for that. Obviously, resources are finite. And so if you can't get the hotel room, if you can't make the trip, if you can't fly, if you can't drive, et cetera, like we get it. You'll be there with us in spirit. I promise we will record something while we are there.
We will be taking you with us for sure.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly. And we're going to shoot a bunch of video and stuff while we're there.
Yeah.
But yes, if you can make it, if you plan on making it, please go visit that post and let me know. I think my plan is to put up a poll, and so you can just check yes or no. But we need numbers more so than actual names. I don't need to collect your address or anything like that.
We don't need to be in your
genuinely
business.
Yeah, genuinely, I don't know that there's any, like, we don't have a package to offer as of yet. There have been some members of the Facebook group that have said they're trying to run down some hotel deals, and thank you very much, by the way, for that.
I'm
the
probably
one thing
going to
that
be
I'm
staying
looking
in the
to
quarter, just because that's where I like to stay, you know. So I'll probably stay in the quarter.
Boy, if we can, there's a particular balcony that Kelly and I are going to try to stay on again.
Same one that
might beat me to it, honestly.
Yeah.
But that hotel has several balconies and rooms. We might both be there.
Their buy now price is not horrible.
Yeah, it's not terrible. I'll just say this though, it is genuinely an affordable trip. Other than perhaps your airfare, if you're from very far off in the country or elsewhere in the world, who knows what those rates are, and they are getting crazier every day. But if you can make it out, it would be cool. If we can get a good sense of what the numbers are going to be, then there's a possibility that we could maybe reserve a back room at a restaurant or a bar or something to have a get together. There's the possibility that we could do maybe like a group tour sometime during the weekend and go on like a vampire tour or something like that. So go check out that post on our Patreon, articulatecoven.com/join. You can join for free and get those sorts of announcements. $2 or more a month gets you access to everything we do early and ad-free, including I just dropped a bunch of new Dark Shadows episodes up there. And I promise this week you will get new episodes of what you missed in season 2 of Interview with the Vampire. Woo-hoo! That has remained on hold, but it's coming. Ashley, you and I have all these movie nights and book clubs coming up. Before you know it, you and I are going to be back into the Flanagan of it all. We're going to do Dr. Sleep and Gerald's Game coming up soon. Yeah. So stay tuned for all of that and more. And again, if you're a patron, you'll get the first announcements on all of those dates coming. Until the next time we talk to you, we have been your hosts. I'm Joel.
I'm Ashley.
And we are the Articulate Coven. Thanks for listening to the Articulate Coven. If you enjoyed the show, check out our groups on Facebook and Discord. Subscribe to the channel on YouTube. Or find us at articulatecoven.com and wherever you listen to podcasts.